Sarvopanishado gavaha dogdha gopalanandanaha partho vatsa sudhir bhokta dugdham gitamritam mahat. We have all assembled here today to relish Gitamrita, the nectarine Gita, the fourth chapter. The fourth chapter titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. We will relish the essence, a crux of the fourth chapter of the Gita. Now imagine you're holding a hot aromatic cup of coffee in your hand. Holding a cup of coffee, almost about to relish it, and then somebody bumps into you, pushes your arm away, and then you end up spilling the coffee all over. And then I ask you, why did you spill the coffee? I ask you the question, why did you spill the coffee? Immediately you would answer, because someone bumped into me. I once again ask you, why did you spill the coffee? Underlining the coffee, most of you would still answer, because somebody bumped into me. Wrong answer. Then what is the correct answer? I spilled the coffee because the cup had coffee in it. If there was tea in the cup, I would have spilled tea. If there was orange juice in the cup, I would have spilled the orange juice. Whatever was in the cup, only that I can spill. When life comes and shakes up, and it is inevitable that it keeps shaking us all the time. There are ups and downs all the time by design. And when life shakes us up, whatever is inside only has to come out. What is in? If there is nectar, out comes nectar. If there is poison, out comes poison. It is our knowledge that is inside that always manifests as our actions. Whenever we face whatever situation in life, it is the knowledge that we have which issues out as actions. It is the knowledge that shapes our actions. It is the knowledge that becomes our motivations. It is the knowledge that becomes our attitudes. Whatever actions we do, therefore, are driven by jnana, knowledge. It is the attitude. It is the attitude of our actions, the attitude that drives our actions that determines our spiritual altitude. Our spiritual altitude is determined by the attitude of our actions. And the attitude is shaped by jnana that we have. So it is important to understand that life is not just about going through the motion. Life is about performing a series of right actions. Now we need to know the difference between motion and action. What is motion and what is action, and what differentiate these two terms? Motion refers to the movement of unconscious things. Action refers to the movement of conscious beings. It's a huge difference. Motion refers to the movement of unconscious things. The water in a river, the flow of the water is in motion. Whereas a boatman driving a boat, rowing a boat on the same river is in action. There is a huge difference between the two. But most often, we do not recognize the fundamental difference between the two. Both are movements. But in the case of motion, it is necessarily governed by the physical laws. The physical laws, the laws of physics, determine the motion of unconscious entities. Now, the same laws of physics can only affect the movement of conscious beings, can affect our actions, but cannot determine our actions. Then what determines our actions? What determines our actions is not the law of physics, but the motivation that drives our action. It is the motivation which determines the actions of conscious beings. Action without motivation is motion. Motion plus motivation is action. It is important to recognize that the motivation of subhuman species falls under 4 categories. For all living beings, there is motivation. It falls under 4 categories for all the living beings: eating, sleeping, reproducing, surviving, or defending. These are the 4 categories. Every action that any living species performs has any one of these 4 motivations. Now, human beings too are driven by the same 4 categories of motivations, but then we have a far more developed consciousness to choose a far more fulfilling motivation. To choose a far more fulfilling motivation for everlasting love and eternal life. This motivation, this longing for everlasting life and eternal love can only be fulfilled at the level of spiritual reality, because we are all spiritual beings. As long as the motivations are material, all our actions are subject to the law of karma. Every action which has a material motivation is subject to the law of karma, which is a cycle of actions and reactions. For every action, there is a consequence, inescapable law of karma. And it is this law of karma which keeps us in this cycle of repeated births and deaths, which is what we call samsara. As long as the motivations are material. Now, when the motivations become spiritual, it is then that the action can transcend the arena of matter. That is when the motivation is spiritual in nature, then we can transcend the law of karma. And that is when an action which is by design binding in nature, action that binds us to the cycle of samsara. Every action that we do binds us to the cycle of samsara. Only when we transform that motivation from material to spiritual, from selfish to selflessness, selfishness to selflessness, only then we can transcend. Only then the material laws cease to apply. Until then, we are bound to the cycle. Until then, we cannot escape the cycle of samsara, repeated births and deaths, because every action and consequence is a chain of repeated a chain that keeps repeating itself. So therefore, what is important to recognize is, unless and until we understand the supremacy of the primacy of jnana, knowledge in every action, it is impossible for us to perform right actions. So when we look at any action, karma, a very broad term with several meanings. When we look at karma, it can be broken down primarily into two components. Karma, action, is twofold in nature. There are two components to it. There is a physical component or a mental component which is related to the work that we do. It could be physical work or mental work, even thoughts. So the work related component and the knowledge related component. Jnana is necessarily a necessary part of karma, because after all, it is jnana that manifests as action. So we need to recognize if the action has a component of knowledge, and until and unless we address that particular component of action, if we do not transform, if we do not get the right knowledge, acquire right knowledge, we cannot perform right actions. So therefore, continuing on the theme of Karma Yoga, in the 3rd chapter, Krishna gives a detailed exposition on Karma Yoga. What is yoga? Yoga is the spiritual aspiration of an Atma to unite with the Paramatma. That is yoga. The process of the union between the Atma and the Paramatma. Now, when karma, action, is performed in order to achieve this union, it becomes Karma Yoga. Throughout the 3rd chapter, Krishna gives a detailed account on Karma Yoga. Now he builds on Karma Yoga, and in the 4th chapter, he talks about the primacy, the significance of jnana. That is why the 4th chapter is titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Now Karma Yoga, he expands on Karma Yoga in the 4th chapter. He adds two important elements to Karma Yoga for us to understand, so that we can practice Karma Yoga in our day-to-day lives. One is the element of jnana. So in the 4th chapter, one of the objectives of the 4th chapter is to demonstrate the significance of the jnana component of Karma Yoga, the primacy of jnana. The second, he talks about sannyasa, renunciation, and in that context, he expands on the principle of yajna. So what we need to see is these two, understand these two important components, the component of jnana and the process or the formula of yajna. And that is why this chapter is titled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. The chapter begins in a very interesting fashion. Now, Gita is spoken at a moment which is very historic in nature, spoken at a very historical moment, no doubt. But what we need to understand is that Gita transcends history, because it gives us timeless principles of life and living. It gives us wisdom which is eternal. Krishna, therefore, right in the beginning of the 4th chapter, he says that this knowledge I deliver, hey Arjuna, I delivered this knowledge long time ago to Vivaswan, he says. Evam Vivasvita Proktam. This to Vivaswan, I delivered this knowledge thousands and thousands of years ago. Now Arjuna is confused. This yogam avyayam, the imperishable yoga, this imperishable knowledge, body of knowledge, I imparted it long time ago to Vivaswan. Vivaswan is Surya Devata, Surya Bhagavan. Interestingly, Krishna says he illuminated the being which illumines the world. The light of knowledge was given to Surya Bhagavan, who gives us light with which we can acquire knowledge through our eyes. So interesting, that's how the 4th chapter begins. Krishna says, I delivered this long time back to verse 1. Hey Arjuna, we immediately ask this question. This knowledge was imparted thousands and thousands of years before. We only thought few thousand years because Gita was delivered to Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now Krishna says this was delivered even before, thousands and thousands of years before. Now things keep changing in this world. Things keep changing all the time in this world. How can that body of knowledge which was delivered thousands of years back, can it be still relevant? And that knowledge that was delivered thousands of years back, can it be still relevant? The beauty of Gita is that it gives us timeless wisdom. It gives us wisdom that transcends time. So when we look at changes, when we talk about changes that have been happening, all the changes that have been happening, no doubt, are bewildering in nature, no doubt. Tremendous amount of change happening. But then, all the changes that we talk about are changes in the external forms of activities that we do. The inner purpose remains the same. The external forms of activities keeps changing, becoming more complex and complex, but the inner purpose remains always the same. After thousands and thousands of years, we still seek to eat, sleep, reproduce, survive. After thousands and thousands of years, we still do all our actions seeking that elusive eternal happiness. Nothing has changed. The inner purpose of what we do, the motivation, the primary motivation, keeps falling in one of the 4 categories. The external forms of the activities could be changing tremendously, but fundamentally nothing changes. We are all still seeking elusive happiness, eternal happiness, which is elusive all the time. So therefore, Gita, it's very important to note, Gita cannot become dated. Gita is beyond being dated, and it is beyond becoming outdated. It is eternally relevant. The wisdom that Krishna teaches in the Gita is eternally relevant, so very practical, so very useful in our day-to-day lives. It was as useful. The Gita mirror not just reflects what people used to see in the past. The Gita mirror is universal and significantly consequential because it gives us a vision of who we are, who we essentially are. And Krishna says this wisdom that was delivered to Vivaswan thousands and thousands of years before, hey Arjuna, unfortunately has been lost over time. Sakale neha mahata yogaha nashtah parantapa. Hey Parantapa, unfortunately, that is the power of time. Time has awesome power. Physically, time can make things perish. Physically, time can make attractive things unattractive. Spiritually, time can make the imperishable inaccessible. This is the power of time. But what time can make inaccessible by its inexorable power, Krishna can make it accessible by his inexhaustible mercy. Krishna's mercy is so very compassionate that what became inaccessible over time, he once again says, hey Arjuna, I'm going to now reveal the same to you. It is on the battlefield of Kurukshetra that Krishna looks at Arjuna and says, hey Arjuna, because you are devoted to me, I shall reveal that knowledge which became that imperishable knowledge, yogam avyayam, that imperishable knowledge which became inaccessible over a period of time, I am now therefore going to deliver the same knowledge to you, Arjuna, because you are so very dear to me, he says. Therefore, Karma Yoga that Krishna has been teaching to Arjuna is not something new that Arjuna is getting. It has been proven, and Krishna says that knowledge which was available to people at large, which has been imparted from one generation of the other, when it became lost due to time, when it became inaccessible, therefore I have taken that as a responsibility of mine to once again make it accessible to one and all. Now Arjuna is little confused. Krishna is his contemporary. He is standing there right in front of him. And Krishna is claiming that thousands and thousands of years before, he shared the same knowledge to Vivaswan. How is it even possible? Therefore, Arjuna asks Krishna, hey Krishna, how is it even possible? Now, this is where the beauty of the art or science of asking the questions comes in. When profound wisdom is given, many times we are tempted to say it is a little ridiculous if it is not something which we can easily comprehend. Now, Arjuna could have easily said, Krishna, it seems too ridiculous to me that you delivered the same thousands of years before. Arjuna does not do that. Katamyetad vijaniyam. How am I to understand what you said, Krishna? Just because we don't understand something, we do not have the right to question profound wisdom. We may not understand several things. In fact, most of the things are not comprehensible to us because of our limited intellect. There is so much to know. And this is where we learn piercing curiosity. And it's complemented by humility. This is what Arjuna stands for. A great combination, curiosity and humility coming together, makes him an ideal disciple. When Arjuna listened to Krishna's claim, Arjuna did not say, "How this is not something which I can accept." He says, "How am I to understand this?" Katam etat vijaniyam. This is then gives Krishna the opportunity. Right questions give an opportunity to the master to take up the right topics, to impart the right knowledge. Krishna takes this opportunity, and with 5 shlokas, 5 very important shlokas of the Gita, he delivers what is celebrated as Avatara Rahasya, the secret to Bhagavan's avatars. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavarjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantapa. Ajopi san avyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakatim swamadishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirbhavati bharata abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam shajanyaham. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkrutam dharma samstapanattaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo vetti tatpataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna. 5 shlokas which are celebrated as shlokas that cover Avatara Rahasya. 2 of them very popular thanks to B.R. Chopra, who produced Mahabharata many years back. Thanks to B.R. Chopra, somehow these shlokas we got to hear every Sunday repeatedly. We most of us internalize these shlokas, possibly not recognizing how profound these two shlokas are. With these 5 shlokas, Krishna gives us Avatara Rahasya, the secret. He unlocks the secret for us to understand this concept of avatars. Arjuna was confused. How can Krishna deliver this knowledge thousands of years back? Krishna answers, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani cha savarjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetta parantapa. Now, when we talk about avatars, we need to know how many, how, when, and why. These are the questions for which we need answers. Now, how many avatars? Normally, we all think avatars with Dashavataras. because that is what are popularly celebrated. But unfortunately for us, that's not true. Krishna clearly here says, Bahuni me vyatitani, Bahuni me. How many avatars? Innumerable avatars. Many avatars. Bahuni me vyatitani. And Krishna says, hey Arjuna, you and I have appeared on this planet repeatedly many times. The only difference is my appearance is called avatara, your appearance is called janma. My appearance is avatara, your appearance is birth. What is the difference? We all keep taking births because of our karma. Bhagavan keeps appearing. No, we can't translate avatara to incarnation. It's a very bad translation. Incarnation by definition means taking a human body. Bhagavan's forms are Shuddha Sattvamaya, and he appears not because of karma, he appears because of his sankalpa. We keep taking janmas, we incarnate. We keep taking bodies repeatedly, birth after birth after birth, based on our karma. We are subject to the law of karma. The lawmaker, Krishna, he is not subject to the law of karma because of his sankalpa. So first question, how many avatars? Many avatars. Not just 10, not just 20, many avatars. And therefore, Arjuna, you don't remember all your births, whereas I know exactly all my appearances because every appearance has a reason. And then the question, next question, how the avatars are taken? Ajopisan avyayatma bhutanam ishwaropisan prakritim swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmamayaya. With my own sankalpa, with my divine will and using my natural powers, I manifest sambhavami atmamaya. With my divine will, I keep manifesting repeatedly. Therefore, Krishna says, how do I take avatars? I will, and then my will results in various manifestations. The question then we immediately ask is, why? When? Before why, when? And when avatars happen? The answer to the question when comes with the next famous shloka. Somebody said this is written by B.R. Chopra. Nobody, without realizing it came from the Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glarirбhavati bharata abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So when does he take avatars? Yada yada hi dharmasya glarirбhavati bharata abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. Whenever there is an ascendance of adharma and a decline of dharma, during those times I take avatars, I manifest. So the answer to the question when is answered by yada yada hi dharmas. Now comes the most important question. Why? Why avatars? Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkrutam dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. Now Krishna here gives a detail on why avatars. What are the reasons for avatars? Paritranaya sadhunam, reason number 1. Vinashaya cha dushkrutam, reason number 2. Reason number 3, dharma samsthapanarthaya. So he gives 3 reasons. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I manifest repeatedly, yuga after yuga, manvantara after manvantara, kalpa after kalpa. I keep manifesting by various forms, through various forms. Why? For these 3 reasons, he says. Let's understand these 3 reasons. Paritranaya sadhuna. Trana means to protect. Sadhu is one who is on the right path. Anyone who is on the path of dharma is called a sadhu. So, paritranaya sadhunam. Tranaya means to protect sadhus, to protect the good. Now, why paritranaya sadhunam? Krishna could have said tranaya sadhunam. Trana means protect. Tranaya sadhunam means protecting sadhus. Krishna adds the paritranaya sadhunam, comprehensive protection. It's like all the LIC agents say, we give you comprehensive protection, not ordinary protection. Bhagavan here says, Paritranaya sadhunam, I comprehensively protect sadhus. What is comprehensive protection? We can understand this when we look at how mothers protect their children. A mother does not delegate protection of a child to her maid. If a child falls in a lake, the mother will jump. She will not wait and call for maids to come so that the child can be protected. If a mortal mother can do this, Bhagavan is, infinite mothers put together. So therefore, Paritranaya sadhunam, comprehensive protection means he personally protects, not just delegates. He is Rakshaka. He is Sarva Rakshaka. He protects each and every one of us personally. Krishna is our protector, our only protector. That is why he says, I keep repeatedly taking avataras. I descend repeatedly. His descent is for our ascent. And therefore, comprehensive protection, personal protection. Great assurance. Once we realize this, then we know how much Bhagavan is doing for us. We keep delegating to him everything. He doesn't delegate. He takes everything and then he keeps protecting us all the time. Vinashaya cha dushkritam. Second reason. The Vinashaya cha dushkritam. The wicked, the evil. Now immediately some translate destruction of the wicked, punishment of the wicked. This is where our Shastras are very, very clear. Bhagavan does not punish. There is no concept of punishment. We are very happy. Why do we say that? He is so very compassionate. He is only Rakshaka. He only knows to protect. He doesn't know to punish. So what is Vinashaya cha dushkritam? It is not punishment of the wicked. It is elimination of the wicked, which in a way is also protection. How can we say this? When the wicked continue to be adharmic, then Bhagavan eliminates every reason possible, including one's body-mind complex, so that that jiva is given another opportunity to reform. The body-mind complex, which is responsible for one to keep pursuing the path of adharma, is eliminated. So Vinashaya cha dushkritam is also protection in many ways, stopping the wicked to continue to pursue the wrong path and eliminating the reasons and giving one more opportunity. This again is wondrous leela of Bhagavan. Vinashaya cha dushkritam. Third reason, dharma samstapanathaya. Dharma samstapana. What is dharma samstapana? Establishing order, harmony in the world. Dharma samstapana also involves making the imperishable knowledge accessible, the inaccessible knowledge. That is why Krishna started off giving this knowledge to Arjuna, which was lost over time. That is also dharma samstapana. Dharma samstapana is also leading by example. It is through the various avatars, Krishna leads by example. He shows in every avatara how should one do right actions. That is, and dharma samstapana not only means establishing order in the outer world, it is also establishing order in our inner worlds. What is establishing order in our worlds? That is why he continues the Avatara Rahasya with the fifth shloka. Janma karma cha me divyam evam yoveti tatpataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimameti sorjuna. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimameti sorjuna. One who understands Avatara Rahasya, and through avatars, when one knows Krishna, he says, guaranteed liberation, moksha is guaranteed upon death. Once this current body, the utility of this body comes to an end. Tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimameti sorjuna. There will not be punarjanma. There is no more birth that is required. Moksha is guaranteed, he says. So one of the reasons dharma samstapana is also establishing inner order. Inner order, inner harmony is love. connection with Krishna. The moment we connect with Krishna, there is inner order, there is love for Krishna, and there is that longing to attain Krishna. So that is also Dharma Samstapana. So Krishna gives the Avatara Rahasya packaged in 5 shlokas, and he says, when one knows me through my avatars, knowing Krishna will result in attaining Krishna. What a big assurance and also a profound declaration. But what is important for us to understand? Knowing Krishna, not theoretically, knowing Krishna transformationally. How do we know Krishna transformationally and not just theoretically? It is to understand how Bhagavan during his avatars, how he performs actions, and how we understand through that what is right action, what is Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga has 2 parts. One is outer success, the other is inner satisfaction. One material contribution, the other is spiritual elevation. Essentially teaching us how do we continue to stay engaged in this world, continue to keep doing whatever we are doing, whichever stage of life we are in, and materially contributing, which is essentially doing Krishna's work, materially contributing to the world, and at the same time progressing, elevating ourselves spiritually. When we start knowing Krishna through his avatars, this knowledge of Krishna becomes so very transformational. And Krishna says, this is the way that people have been practicing in the past, hey Arjuna. This is how they have been practicing right actions, the art and science of doing right actions. And therefore, one must follow these masters of yore who have been putting this knowledge into practice. Now, one of the most often asked philosophical question is why bad things happen to good people. Always, every time we kind of get into a philosophical mood, immediately this question pops up. Why bad things always happen to good people? Here Krishna teaches us how to change this driving question by asking Arjuna that one must follow what practitioners of Karma Yoga in the past were doing. How do we follow them? By changing this driving question. Instead of asking why bad things happen to good people, we must start asking how good people act when bad things happen to them. When we start asking this question, then we start getting answers to how we can face the challenges of life which are inevitable. Krishna says, evam nyatva kritam karma purvairabi mumukshubhihi. All mumukshus in the past, they were practicing Karma Yoga, and through Karma Yoga, bhakti, and this is the way they were able to lead successful lives. Hey Arjuna, you must emulate them. In order for you to get elevated, in order for you to get liberated, you must emulate them, you must follow them. Emulating great masters is not easy. It seems a little boy went to his dad with a very serious question. And he looked at his dad and said, Dad, can I ask you something? Sure, go ahead, son. Feel free. He said, Dad, in Satya Yuga, Prahlada was a hero. But Prahlada did not listen to his dad. Yet we celebrate him as a hero. Came Treta Yuga, Rama always listened to his dad. And we celebrate him as a hero. Now I'm confused. Should I listen to you or not listen to you? Now dad looked at his son and said, in a very grave tone, with all seriousness, my dear son, let me be very honest. Let me be very honest. This is Kali Yuga, and therefore it is better for you and me to listen to your mom for peace and harmony in family. Emulating great people can be very bewildering, and knowing the formula for right action is equally confusing. That is why when we talk about karma and Karma Yoga, the term karma, in spite of Krishna spending a long time in the second chapter and third chapter, all of us still have confusion. Even after finishing 18 chapters of the Gita, we are still confused. But what is encouraging is Krishna himself says, don't worry, kim karma kimakarmeti kavayo pyatra mohitaha. Even panditas, even great masters are confused about karma. We all say, thank God, now we know. If we are confused, there is a reason for the confusion. He says, kim karma kimakarmeti kavayo pyatra mohitaha. Hey Arjuna, it is not easy for anyone to understand karma, because karma, as we understand, normally we all think karma is all about retribution. So karma is all about vengeance. Karma is all about payback. But then karma is not about retribution, it is about reformation. The purpose of karma becomes incomprehensible. The law of karma becomes incomprehensible only when we do not understand the purpose of the law of karma. We always equate payback, vengeance, punishment, retribution. That is why we keep always asking the question, why this is happening to me all the time? Why do I deserve? Do I deserve this whatever is happening to me? Because we always associate karma with retribution. In the Gita, Krishna is very clear. It is all about, the purpose is reformation. It is when any situation happens, the situation becomes an opportunity for us to get to know our real identity and the purpose of life. Every situation is an opportunity for us to question and seek and relook at our own conception of who we are and the purpose of life. And when our conception of our true identity is aligned with reality, that becomes the real ultimate purpose of life. So Krishna, in the process of clarifying, decoding karma in the 4th chapter, also comes up with akarma. We may ask, hey Krishna, you said you're going to simplify, but then you're making it more complex. Krishna comes up with a very, very profound shloka which sounds like a riddle to all of us. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gehana karmano gatihi. He says the gati of karma is so very difficult to comprehend, because only those who have really mastered the art of right actions, they understand the difference between karma and akarma. And he says, who is that who has understood karma? Who is that buddhiman, the truly wise? He says, karmani akarmaya pashyet akarmani cha karmayaha sa buddhiman manusheshu cha krishna karmakat. He says. Let's decode this in a very, very simple way. There are many, many ways of understanding this. What is karma? What is akarma? Karma can mean many things. Karma can mean action. Karma can mean reaction. Reaction to every action. Karma can mean both. Akarma can mean inaction. Akarma, inaction. Akarma can also mean karma with no reaction. Once we understand this, the puzzle becomes easy to solve. Krishna says, karmani akarmaya pashyet. See akarma in karma. Then he says, see akarma in karma, karma in akarma. How do we understand this? Whenever a right action is performed, see akarma in it, which means understand right actions will leave behind no reactions. This is the formula of Karma Yoga. What is the right action? When it is selfless, contributory, aligned to a higher cause. 3 important things. Right action, Karma Yoga, to understand in a way that we can apply in our day-to-day lives. Selfless in nature, contributory in nature, aligned to a higher cause. Aligned with Krishna. When an action fits all these 3 categories, it becomes right action. Such an action will have no reactions. This is the first point to understand. Second point. This is akarma in karma. Karma in akarma. Now akarma can be translated as inactivity. Krishna says, even if you don't do anything, they can still be karma. They can still be reactions. How is it? I give an example. A patient is suffering. The doctor says, the patient is anyway going to die. There is nothing that I can do. Therefore, I will not act. Inaction. The doctor does nothing, but papa karma is accrued to him. He cannot say, I did not do anything. Patient was dying, I did not do anything. So therefore, even when there is inaction, there is a possibility to accrue reaction. We think inaction means there is no reaction. No, even if we don't do anything, therefore advice to Arjuna is, hey Arjuna, even if you don't fight this war and run away, you cannot escape from reaction. And when you fight the war based on the principle of karma yoga, there will be no reaction. There is no papa karma for you. Because Arjuna's question was, will I accrue papa karma by fighting the war? Krishna says, no. If you fight the war based on the principle of karma yoga, and what is the principle of karma yoga? Selfless, contributory, aligned to a higher cause. When all these three principles are followed, then such action will be reactionless. And for the action to be reactionless, Krishna in the concluding part, the second part of the 4th chapter, talks about how karma yoga can be performed as yajna. This is where the principle of yajna becomes so very important to us. We all think yajna is something Vaidika. Yajna, immediately what comes to our mind is doing fire sacrifice. There is a fire altar, and then we offer oblations into the fire and pray to various devatas, and then that becomes Vaidika yajna. This is what Karma Kanda of the Vedas prescribe. This is one form of yajna. But Krishna revolutionizes the principle of yajna, and he talks about how any action can become yajna. And only when an action becomes yajna, it does not have any reactions. Therefore, foundation to karma yoga is yajna. And what is this yajna? This yajna is offering karma in the fire of jnana. So now if we visualize the Vaidika yajna, there is an offering, an oblation which is given to the fire, and that becomes a Vaidika yajna. Now Krishna says, when any action, any karma is offered in the fire of knowledge, in the fire of jnana, that fire of jnana will burn away the reactions of that action and make the action pure in nature. Therefore, karma yoga is performing any action in the mood of yajna, essentially offering the action in the fire of jnana. It's like every action when we do, we sow a seed, and that seed then becomes the source for another action of a similar nature. So on, we are constantly sowing seeds when we perform action. These seeds are the vasanas, the impression in the mind, and the consequences, punya karma and papa karma. Now, when action is performed as yajna, the seed that is sown is burnt by the fire of jnana. When a seed is burnt, it will not sprout again. So we stop the sprouting of the seed into continuation of material existence. So Krishna teaches that principle of yajna and says karma yoga has to be performed. That is why he says yajnaya charatah karma samagram praviliyate. No, we transcend. When an action is performed as yajna, we transcend the physical laws, the material laws, and we transcend the arena of matter. Krishna talks about different types of actions that can be performed as yajna. We wonder, when Krishna talks about different kinds of actions, what kind of actions these could be? He takes up simple things like eating, like breathing. He said every physical, physiological, emotional, every kind of act that we do can be transformed into an yajna. Pranayama is yajna in action. He talks about, he gives the various ways of performing karma yoga as yajna. Worshipping devatas. Here he talks about the fire of chanting that gives the purification. He talks about doing Vedika Yajna, the fire of the Vedas. Then he talks about the fire of the senses in controlling. When we engage with this world, we can make our senses, our indriyas, as gateways. They become the fire, and every stimuli that comes in is offered into this fire and it becomes purified. This is the process of sense control, gateways, letting inside stimuli into the mind. Only that we permit, we have the power to permit or not permit something coming from outside to inside. So this is one kind of yajna he talks of. Then he talks of yajna where the fire is the fire of free will. This is mind mastery. Now, when the senses are purified, yes, there can be a gateway which we can filter what comes inside our mind, but many a times we cannot filter what comes in the mind. All kinds of dirt from outside come into our mind, knowingly or unknowingly, without our ability to influence that. It is in those times that we need the fire of willpower with which we can exercise mind mastery, control our senses, and process what we exercise our free will, not process the unwanted, process the wanted. So Krishna talks about mind mastery as a yajna. Krishna talks about breath control as a yajna. Krishna talks about charity, where the fire of giving which purifies. Krishna talks about pilgrimage as a yajna, where it is the fire of God-centeredness. When we put ourselves, our ego into that fire, all our actions get purified and our life gets a new direction, a Godward, Krishnaward direction. He talks about pilgrimage as a yajna. So he talks about balanced diet as a yajna. He talks about a moderated, regulated, balanced lifestyle as a yajna. All of us have this question, is this or that, material or spiritual, worldliness or spirituality. Krishna clearly says it is not this and that, it is this and that. Everything is material in this universe, but through the principle of yajna, even the material can be spiritualized, he says. It is consecrating the material. And in the process of engaging with the world, by performing yajna, one can keep doing actions which are purified and which are reactionless. And saying this, Arjuna has a question. How do I acquire this kind of knowledge so that I can assimilate and put it to practice? Krishna says, Tad viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tatpadarshinaha. The only way to acquire knowledge, hey Arjuna, is to approach masters, gurus, those who are tattvadarshis, surrender to them. Pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Surrender to them and seek. Seeking and surrendering have to come together. Surrendering before seeking. And in that process, one can acquire right knowledge. Krishna says it is acquisition of this right knowledge and applying the same as actions requires one important foundational ingredient, hey Arjuna. And what is that foundational ingredient? Krishna says Shraddha. Shraddha is that foundational ingredient, because many times we are confused. There is a big difference between feeling Krishna and trusting Krishna. Most of the times we want to feel. Okay, feeling Krishna is all about tasting Krishna Anubhava, experiencing Krishna. But then our feelings are so very fickle. Many times we may not have the feeling when required. We don't need to be disheartened. What is important to understand? And then when that happens, then instead of trying to taste Krishna, we start testing Krishna. We put the blame on Krishna, saying, it is all because of you. I don't have feel. That bhakti in me suddenly is not there. All of a sudden, there is a vacuum, it seems. Now, what we need to understand is Krishna's omnipresence is not dependent on our lack of feeling of his presence. Therefore, even before feeling Krishna or tasting Krishna, we must trust Krishna. Trusting Krishna is fundamental, is foundational. So even when we lack the feel, when we trust, the feel will come, the taste will come. taste for Krishna takes time, but then trust, Shraddha is so very important. And therefore, Krishna says towards the end of 4th chapter that Shraddha is foundational here, Arjuna. And when you build the whole process on the foundation of Shraddha, then you are well prepared to stay on course and you will not give up. And trusting Krishna, one keeps moving forward. And as one keeps moving forward, Krishna says, hey Arjuna, pick up the sword. Now we all wonder, Arjuna is Gandhivadhari and Krishna is asking to pick up the sword. He says, pick up the sword of knowledge, hey Arjuna, and with that sword of knowledge, cut asunder all doubts born out of ignorance. Yogam atishtottishta bharata. Yogam atishtottishta. Atishta uttishta. Take refuge of that yoga, that karma yoga, and taking refuge of that uttishta. Stand up, be firm, and engage with the world. Do your duties, do your actions. Hey Bharata, success will always be yours. Thus, Krishna ends the 4th chapter on a note of another assurance. Now, Krishna says, cut asunder all your doubts, hey Arjuna. But then, after 4 chapters, our doubts are only increasing. It is quite natural. If doubts are increasing, it's good news. The more the doubts we have, which means we are continuing to seek. So let us continue to seek and let us keep diving into this nectarine ocean of the Gita. And as we keep diving in, again, as Krishna says towards the end of the 4th chapter, what is important for us is to choose not the faith in the eyes, choose the eyes of faith. Choose not faith in the eyes. Choose the eyes of faith. And when we choose the eyes of faith, we bridge the gap between personal realization and Krishna's revelation. Our personal realization and Krishna's revelation, the gap keeps coming down, getting close when we strengthen our eyes of faith. And this is a process where we are journeying all of us together. Relish the nectarine Gita Amrita, and Krishna slowly and steadily will keep revealing the truths to all of us as we keep journeying in this path. Sarvam Sri Krishna Arpanamastu.